So Limerick 36 points, Clare 123 at Semple Stadium. Limerick are officially the 2020 National Hurling League champions after this victory. Of course, obviously Limerick coming into the game, they weren't really thinking about this being a National Hurling League final. They were fully focused on the Munster Senior Hurling Championship and the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship that is ahead, and they came into the game as massive favourites, of course, with the amount of injuries that Clare had coming into the game. The likes of Peter Duggan, Podge Collins, for example, not available for this game. But of course, in the end, Clare put up quite a bright display throughout the game. Tony Kelly hitting 17 points in total. But in the end, it was Limerick who got the victory. And yeah, here, of course, with my thoughts after the game and my match reaction, as always. So let's get straight into it. Okay guys, so first of all, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the teams, and we'll have a look at the Clare team here first of all. So we had Eibhear Killigan in goal, we had Jack Brown, Conor Cleary, Stephen O'Halloran making up the fullbacks. Half-back line was Shadna Morey, Patrick O'Connor and Aidan McCarthy. Midfield was David McInerney and Tony Kelly, and then of course Dermot Ryan, David Reedy, David Fitzgerald making up the half-forward line, Ryan Taylor, Cathal Malone, and of course Shane O'Donnell making up the full forwards. Of course, Tony Kelly did drift into the forward line, as we well know, hitting 17 points. What a performance that was from Tony Kelly in the end. If we have a look, of course, here at the Limerick team, so we had Nicky Quaid in goal, Sean Finn, Dan Morrissey and Barry Nash making up the full back line, Dermot Burns, Declan Hannon and Paddy O'Loughlin in at half back, and then Cian Lynch and William O'Donoghue of course in midfield, Geroid Hegarty, Kyle Hayes and Tom Morrissey of course making up the half forward line, Graham Mulcahy, Aaron Gallan and Peter Casey of course making up the full forward line. And yeah, look, listen, what a game it was. Limerick coming in as massive favourites, and certainly in the opening few minutes, Limerick were able to hit a couple of early scores. Aaron Glan with a free, and then of course Peter Casey quickest onto a breaking ball and doubled Limerick's advantage. But of course Tony Kelly then started getting off the mark with a number of points, and from there Clare in the first half in particular were very good, weren't they? They were able to dominate, win more ball higher up the field. Tony Kelly was causing all sorts of problems for this Limerick side. It was very hard to see who was marking Tony Kelly in that first half. He seemed like there was a number of different men on him at different times in the game, which showed the versatility that he was playing with and causing so much problems throughout the entire game. And yeah, undoubtedly Limerick did get more and more back into the game. Aaron Gallan, of course, and Peter Casey, hitting a number of very bright scores. In particular, Aaron Gallan, outstanding as always. If Tony Kelly wasn't man of the match, then Aaron Gallan certainly was in with a show. Tom Morrissey, again, in the first half he struggled a little bit, but in the second half certainly came more and more into it. And yeah, going into the first water break, of course, Clare with a 2-point lead over Limerick. Tony Kelly hitting 8 of Clare's 9 points in that game. A phenomenal performance altogether in that first half. And Limerick were struggling. Their possession was quite poor. They were losing the ball in the middle of the park, and a lot of their passing was certainly breaking down. And it was quite worrying without doubt for Limerick in that first half, and you were just wondering, would Clare be able to pull off the shock? Of course, after the water break, Limerick did start getting more and more into it. The likes of Graham Mulcahy hitting a couple of fantastic scores, Tom Morrissey contributing of course as well. Tony Kelly was able to level it up on numerous occasions throughout that second quarter of the first half, if you like. And it looked like Limerick were going to have the dominance going into half time. They had a 15 to 12 point lead with Aaron Gallan hitting a couple of frees, but in the end, Clare did show a lot of resolve in this game, and I think that would be something that would give Clare fans a lot more positivity compared to last year when Limerick completely steamrolled Clare in the Munster Championship. This year they did show a lot of resolve, they did show a lot of character, and they stayed in the game for as long as they could. And even in the second half, that Ryan Taylor goal for Clare, when it just looked like Limerick were going to start to really win the game quite comfortably. I think it was a 5-point lead at that point, and Clare got themselves a goal through Ryan Taylor, and it was undoubtedly the impact of Aaron Shanahan coming into the side at half time made a huge difference, because 2 Limerick players went for that ball that was played into him, completely missed it, and Shanahan was able to knock it on to Ryan Taylor, who slotted it comfortably past Nicky Quaid and Clare. From there, it looked like, they might get a bit of momentum and they might be able to overturn Limerick a lot more now. They were winning a couple of midfield battles, but Limerick showed their experience that they have in this team. The All-Ireland winners in their team. Will O'Donoghue was fantastic at contributing the attack, in my opinion. He set up 4 points in the second half. He was brilliant in the midfield, contributed brilliantly for this Limerick side. Geroid Hegarty started coming more and more alive towards the end of the game as well. Scored 5 points in this game in total. Keane Lynch as well. He deserves a lot of praise because, he started coming more and more into the game as the match went on. And certainly, you would have to say that the Limerick side defensively started doing a lot better in the second half. Tony Kelly, he was the main man for this Clare side, and certainly Limerick did a much better job on him in the second half compared to the first. The likes of Dermot Burns and Declan Hannon really doing a great job for that Limerick side defensively to, disallow Clare from, getting back into the game and building a bit more momentum. And, quite incredible. Limerick at that stage, I think, their energy and their fitness levels were way higher than Clare, and I think that was one of the main reasons for Clare's defeat in the end. And it was a fantastic win. In the end, Limerick hitting 36 points, the second highest total ever from a Munster team, and I believe the highest total ever in a Munster Senior Hurling Championship. Cork, of course, hit 40 points against Westmeath last year, and Limerick now hitting 36. But obviously, there's a huge difference between Clare and Westmeath. Two completely different sides. And Clare, quite incredibly, they conceding 36 points, quite extraordinary. And I think there's a number of different reasons for it. I think it's the first game back since COVID, and obviously for we're going to see some crazy score lines. We seen yesterday Dublin hit, 234, which is quite a high score again, for a Dublin team. And we will see this throughout the hurling championship. We've seen it in football a bit as well. Wicklow hitting 7-11 in one game, Mayo destroying Galway in one game, and you're seeing it in other sports as well. I think the fact that there's no fans there, that there's not as much preparation that goes into games compared to previous games, or compared to previous seasons. The fact that Limerick will have just 1 week after the league final to play Tipperary compared to when there's normally 3 to 4 weeks, I think makes a massive difference. So in the end, what can you say? Limerick getting the victory, 36 points to 123, 10-point victory for Limerick. And yeah, listen, the All-Ireland Hurling Championship is going to be very, very interesting this year. It's so hard to call, in my opinion. 1 minute I think Kilkenny will win it, the next I'm looking at Limerick and everyone else. And certainly going into that game next week between Limerick and Tipperary, it's going to be very tough to see how it goes. I fancy Tipperary, to be honest, just having that extra week break as such, or more than an extra week. But obviously Limerick only just having the 1 week between these games, and Tipperary will be able to prepare a bit more. Clare will go into the qualifiers, and it depends who they come up against. If they come up against the likes of a Clare or Dublin, or the likes of a Dublin or Laois, you'd probably fancy Clare to get over the line. But we will have to wait and see what happens. But anyway, lads, my name is Aaron. I'm going to wrap this up here. Do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.